4.5 down, 5.5 down. 100 feet, 3.5 down, 9 forward. Okay, 75 feet. Started looking good, down a half. 6 forward. 60 seconds. Lights on.
No, you're not listening to a successful landing of the first manned trip to Mars, but rather a successful landing of my drone after a fierce fight with the wind. Yeah, I was pretty stoked that I saved my $1,000 investment. To me, it felt like a successful landing on Mars. Hey, don't judge.
The Eagle has landed.
Good morning, everyone. How is your shelter in place going? Mine, I guess I got a little bit of cabin fever, so I'm a little bit rebellious right now. I'm in California. I went down to Nevada to, check on my house, see how things are going, and I decided to make a side trip to California. Today I'm at Amboy Crater. It's this awesome crater, not too far from 29 Palms. It's out right smack in the middle of the desert, and you can see it behind me. Actually, it's right over there. As I was saying, I got a little bit of cabin fever with this whole COVID-19 shelter-in-place thing, so I'm gonna be a little bit rebellious and decide to take a hike. I'm still maintaining social distance because I'm doing this by myself. Having said that, I must be crazy because this is essentially hell. This place is just incredibly hot, and it's April and it's already forecast to be 100 degrees. I think it's about 80 right now, and I'm gonna hike to this crater out here. Ironically, there's a sign over here that says hiking is not recommended, so why I'm doing that I have no idea, but it should be a good one, so let's do it. After roughly a 2-hour drive from Las Vegas, I finally arrived in the town of Amboy. Now, Amboy is the kind of town that they say, don't blink or you'll miss it. Yeah, it's that small. Furthermore, one might say that it's a bit of a ghost town because I didn't see a single soul during the entire 3 seconds it took to pass through the town. But the town of Amboy is not the reason for me dragging my ass all the way out to the middle of nowhere. Of course, I came out for a visit to Amboy Crater.
Continue on Crater Road for half a mile.
Now, this part of the planet is not exactly the most hospitable when it comes to hiking, and that's something to keep in mind. Ultimately, I'm saying, make sure you bring enough water. There she is, Amboy Crater. And I'm doing this in 100-degree weather. They say it takes about an hour and a half to hike from the parking lot to the crater, and I'm gonna hike it, summit it. I don't know, I might even go inside the crater if time permits, see how I feel, but I made sure I had plenty of water, so we should be good to go. So we got a long way to go. Let's get to it. Before you start the hike, the first question out of your mouth will be, where's the trail? The trail is well marked, with one exception being the trailhead. The short answer to that question is, the trailhead is essentially next to the John, so start there. This trail is one of the best maintained trails I have ever seen. It's so maintained that I didn't even feel like I was hiking, but rather going for a walk on a park trail. And it's essentially idiot-proof when it comes to not getting lost here. But of course, there's always that one guy that proves you wrong. While we're enjoying this stunning view of the crater, I'm going to take a moment and ask you to click the subscribe button so you can see more amazing videos in the future, along with the notification bell. I appreciate your efforts. Although it was hot, I was at total peace. This view reminded me of my visit to Australia's Uluru. Posted everywhere throughout the trail are signs stating that hiking is not recommended. If that's the case, I don't understand why they maintain such a beautiful trail. I suppose the signs are posted for limited liability. People have died hiking here at Amboy Crater. Slowly, I inch closer to the base of the crater. Up until this part, the hike had been far from strenuous. With the blue sky as the background and the wildflowers scattered everywhere, it was a picturesque scene. I took my time hiking so I could totally enjoy the view. Up until this point, I still hadn't encountered a single person, which felt very odd. I'm sure that was due to the combination of the heat and, of course, the coronavirus. I can see the base of the crater. That's where the fun part begins. We begin the ascent. So it looks like got to go up there. And from my understanding, part of the crater collapsed. And that's the part that allows us to enter the crater. So let's get going before it gets ridiculous out here. The view just got better from here. At this point, I was virtually at the base of the crater, and the trail began to circle around to the portion of the crater that was collapsed. Up until now, the trail had been relatively flat. Now it was time to begin the ascent. The ascent started out very gradual. Normally, I'm one that tends to sweat profusely. However, I hadn't broken a sweat up until this point. Of course, a large portion of that was due to the 30 knots wind blowing around Amboy Crater. I wasn't complaining about the wind. Had it not been blowing, I probably would have been consuming a larger quantity of water. Wow, hiking at Amboy Crater is like a walk in the park, if that park was in hell, because this place is hot. Furthermore, I almost stepped on a rattler. I got a video of it, I'll show it to you. And it was funny, before I started hiking, I'm like, I wonder if they have rattlers here. Well, now I know. And that little guy is, he's hiding underneath this concrete slab in this little bush over here. More of the story is watch where you step, because you definitely do not want to be bit. I don't want to be bit. Here's the video of me discovering the rattlesnake. He totally caught me off guard. Of course, me being me, I wanted to stick my camera all up in his face, but this was not the place to be bitten, especially being that there wasn't another soul to be found anywhere. It would have been a lonely death. He just wanted me to keep my social distance. I'm sure he was saying, "Back off, don't be giving me any of your cross-species COVID-19. When I finished fooling around with the snake, I pressed on to the crater. I was just about at the base. The wind speed was increasing as I got closer. I took a moment just to enjoy the crater and the surrounding scenery. The ascent was still very mild and far from strenuous. Oh yeah. Now things are starting to get interesting. I'm at the base of the crater, and I'm at the part where I actually need to climb up into the crater. And this is where it transitions from a light walk, an easy walk, to a light scramble. Let me show you where I need to go here. Need to go up there. Yeah, that's a light scramble. That's a piece of cake, but you know, up to this point, it was just a casual stroll. But now it's a light scramble, as I like to say. This is where we turn up the heat when it comes to the intensity of the ascent into Amboy Crater. It was still nothing ridiculous, but it was more strenuous than it had been up until this point. For you fitness junkies, this is a piece of cake. This view doesn't do justice in terms of the scale of the crater, so I'm going to do my best to give you an idea of just how big this crater is. Watch as I show different phases of my climb into the crater. As you can see, I'm getting smaller the higher I climb. The sucky part was the fact that I had to climb down to get my camera and then hike back up to where I last was. Oh, the sacrifice I make for you guys. I can see stark contrast between Amboy Crater and the surrounding area. The inside of the crater was a combination of brown, beige, and orange colors, while the outside was primarily green. Finally at the top, I entered the crater. The place was almost entirely comprised of volcanic rock. There was very little vegetation growing inside. The surrounding area was moonscaped, and the wind howled. Alright, I'm at the center of the crater. As soon as you get in here, you begin to realize exactly how small this volcano is, because this crater is very small. It takes hardly any time to walk from end to end. See that? But it's a cool little hike. I'm headed up to the rim of the crater, where I'm going to try to fly my drone. I don't know. Wind is sketchy. We'll see. There were several trails that led to the rim of the crater. Me being out of shape, I naturally took the path of least resistance. All sides of the rim are relatively the same height. However, the path I took had a more gradual ascent. Again, here are different segments of the ascent so you can appreciate its height. It took roughly 5 to 10 minutes to reach the rim of the crater. When I did reach the rim, I was rewarded with a stunning view of the surrounding area. From here I could clearly see the well-marked trail that I had hiked to reach the top of this amazing place. I felt a sense of accomplishment. Needless to say, you can see for miles around at the top of this crater. And just like every typical volcano, at least the ones I've been to, it's moonscape on the inside. It's really cool. This is awesome. Now that I was at the rim, it was time to move on to the summit. From here on, it would be a piece of cake to get to the top. I felt the summit would be a good place to launch my drone for some awesome footage of Amboy Crater. As I make my way to the summit, please take a moment to click the like button to share this video. Thanks. During this entire hike, I still hadn't encountered a single person, and then it happened. I finally saw another living soul. Well, it's official. I have reached the summit. Only thing left to do now is go down to the middle of the crater and stand there. But on this momentous occasion, I kind of feel like I have to, I kind of feel the need to go stand on a rock over here and do my Captain Morgan stance. So I'm going to do that. Feeling very accomplished, I felt the need to do a victory stance, so I took a moment to do a Captain Morgan. Yeah, it was stupid, but it felt good.
A new darker, bolder spice rum from Captain Morgan.
After that celebratory moment, it was time to head down to the middle of the crater. I chose a path that was not quite as gradual as the one I came up on, but it was the most direct path to the center, and I was ready to get the hell out of there. There were a lot of loose rocks, and I was in no mood for a fall today. In case you are unaware, volcanic rock is very sharp. After attempting to fly my drone, I made my way towards the path to begin the descent down to the middle of the crater. After climbing up and down the rim of the crater several times, and in combination with the heat, I was starting to feel fatigued. Plus, at this point, I was starting to run low on water. Once the water ran dry, the only thing I had to rely on was 3 pouches of Capri Sun. It was clear that I had outstayed my welcome. I had successfully managed to make it to the bottom of the crater without falling on my ass. I then made my way down to one of the 2 dry lake beds at the center of the crater. Even though this is a very small crater, look how small I look walking down to the lake bed. You ever been hiking at a national park and notice the rocks that are stacked on top of each other? You know, I've been to a number of places and they've done that. Surprisingly, there are no rocks stacked here, and I kind of feel obligated to do that. So I'm gonna stack a few rocks, and maybe we'll start a trend. Did I mention fatigue was setting in? It's beyond me why I chose this heavy-ass rock to stack on top of another. I was tired, and that rock was heavy. After lifting that one rock, I opted to go for much smaller ones moving forward. Finally finished fooling around, it was time to make my way back to the car. I was out of water and fatigued. That was a bad combination. As I mentioned, I had 3 Capri Suns and that was it for hydration until I got back to my car. I rationed them all the way back to the end of the trail. Well, that was a fun little hike. If ever you're in the San Bernardino, Barstow area, Needles area, you gotta do this hike. I think they rate the difficulty as medium, but it's pretty easy if you're in relatively good shape. The only thing that would possibly bring the difficulty level up to medium, I say, is the heat, because that is a factor. Make sure you bring lots of liquids, because you do not want to be out there and dehydrated. But overall, awesome place. Gotta come here. Good job.